What do you do when your coach throws the entire team under the bus after a devastating loss? Stephanie White just did exactly that following the Fever's 80-61 blowout loss to the Valkyries. This wasn't just any loss. This was an expansion team demolishing them for the second time this season. The worst part, this was Caitlin Clark's triumphant return from injury. The Fever had just dominated Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces, as well as Nafisa Collier and the Minnesota Lynx. While a sold-out Gainbridge Fieldhouse watched in disbelief, White made coaching decisions that left analysts scratching their heads. Then, in the post-game press conference, she pointed fingers at everyone except herself. Picture this. Just last week, the Fever were on top of the world, holding up their first Commissioner's Cup trophy. The team had found their rhythm and their identity. They absolutely dominated Asia Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces, making one of the league's best players look ordinary. Then they outplayed Nafisa Collier and the Minnesota Lynx, proving they could compete with anyone. The future looked bright. The chemistry was clicking. Everything was falling into place. Then came July 9th. Caitlin Clark's return from her groin injury was supposed to be a celebration. She had been sidelined for 5 games, including missing the Commissioner's Cup championship game that her team won without her. The anticipation was through the roof. Fans couldn't wait to see what this team could do with their superstar back on the court. The sold-out crowd of fans packed Gainbridge Fieldhouse expecting fireworks. The energy was electric before tip-off, and it's given me great perspective on what other people have gone through their career, and, like you said, I've been fortunate enough to never really been injured, and I play a lot of minutes usually, so I think it gives me good perspective, not only for people that are injured, but, some of your teammates that may not get the minutes that they want to get, and, I think I could use that experience to be a better leader, to be a better teammate, but also it's challenge you mentally. I think, it's really hard to stop and go, and especially when you're not feeling your best, so, just trying to get my body as healthy as I can be, and then remain confident in myself, and then do everything I can once I step back out on the court to help us win. Instead, they watched their team get demolished 80-61 by an expansion team that shouldn't even be competitive yet. The Golden State Valkyries looked like seasoned veterans, while the Fever looked lost and confused. This was the second time the Valkyries had beaten the Fever this season, but this one hurt differently. This was supposed to be their moment, their homecoming, their statement game. Clark's return was supposed to spark the offense, but the team managed just 31% shooting from the field. They made only 6 of 27 three-point attempts. The offense that had been so smooth during their championship run looked broken. The ball movement was sluggish, the shots weren't falling, the timing was off everywhere you looked. The team scored only 19 points combined in the second and fourth quarters. 19 points. In 2 full quarters of basketball. The Fever gave up 10 offensive rebounds in the second half alone, letting the Valkyries get second and third chances at will. Every possession felt like a struggle. Every defensive stop felt impossible. The energy in the arena went from electric anticipation to stunned silence. You could feel the disappointment spreading through the crowd. Fans who had come to celebrate were watching their team fall apart. Clark herself acknowledged the struggles after the game, saying, "I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. I thought we played with energy in the first 5 minutes, and then, when they kind of went on their first run, it kind of deflated us a little bit, which I'm not really sure why. It's every single person on our team, and, nobody played well today, and you should look yourself in the mirror and find ways where you can get better and come back to practice tomorrow and then play again on Friday." This wasn't just a bad game. It was a complete system failure that exposed deeper problems. The team that had a solid winning streak last week looked like they had forgotten how to play basketball. But the real shock came after the final buzzer when the blame game started. And I think collectively we didn't do a good job at taking away the stuff that their team likes to do and making them do things they don't want to do. We didn't do a good job of that. We also gave up some timely offensive rebounds that they do a great job of kicking it out, getting open looks, hitting open threes late in the game. I think it really just comes down to effort and us not locking in mentally and following the scouting report. Here's where things get really frustrating. Stephanie White made moves that had everyone scratching their heads. She decided to bench Lexi Hull, one of the team's most consistent defenders and three-point threats. Hull had been starting for most of the season. She was the perfect complement to Clark's style. She spaced the floor and played lockdown defense. But White threw all of that out the window. Then we have to talk about Stephanie White getting in the presser and actually going off on the Indiana Fever. But it's something about it, man, because although, yeah, I get it, she was talking about the players, and I understand that, because she was right. She also need to take a little bit of accountability on her own as well. Instead, she started Ari McDonald at point guard, who was the spark plug of the team while Clark was away. This forced Clark to play off ball at small forward instead of her natural position. How can you not let a generational player play the position she excels in the most? Clark is a point guard. That's where she makes magic happen. That's where she controls the game. The offense became stagnant almost immediately. Clark couldn't find her rhythm and the offense looked clunky. Clark needed the ball to create for others, but Coach Stephanie White was forcing her to run around and set screens. The two styles didn't mesh at all. One analyst said it looks like they didn't even practice this starting lineup. Hull had been crucial for this team's success. She provided floor spacing that opened up driving lanes for Clark. Her three-point shooting kept defenses honest. Her defense was solid and reliable. All of that disappeared when White put her on the bench. The team lost its identity in one move. The Valkyries capitalized on every mistake while the Fever's new lineup struggled to find chemistry. The ball movement disappeared. The offense became predictable. Players were taking difficult shots instead of creating open looks. Even worse, White's rotations left Clark with limited minutes just when the team needed her most. This was Clark's first game back from injury. The team was struggling offensively. The crowd was getting restless. Clark's presence on the court was crucial for sparking something, but White kept her minutes restricted. Every time Clark sat down, the momentum died. The lack of ball movement hurt the most. The team couldn't generate easy scoring opportunities. They relied on contested shots instead of open looks for shooters like Hull and Mitchell. The offense that had been so smooth just weeks earlier looked broken beyond repair. I would say we can do better than the motion offense when Caitlin Clark's on the bench. We can utilize Kelsey, we can utilize AB, we can utilize Ari, we can do things. But no. Caitlin Clark was a decoy for many parts of this game, majority of this game, dare I say. These weren't small adjustments. They were fundamental changes that destroyed the team's identity. White changed the starting lineup, moved Clark out of position, and benched one of their most reliable players. The results spoke for themselves. A 19-point loss to an expansion team. But White's post-game comments would prove even more damaging than her tactical mistakes. What happened in that post-game press conference will have you questioning everything about leadership. Stephanie White stood at the podium and delivered comments that shocked fans and analysts alike. She looked directly into the cameras and blamed her players for the devastating loss. I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. With the exception of about 2 5-minute spurts, our attention to detail was poor. I'm not sure if it's not knowing the game plan, as much as, because if it's not knowing the game plan, then that's a whole nother conversation, as much as not executing the game plan. White said, I was disappointed because I felt like there was a lack of competitive fire. She didn't stop there. She continued attacking her team's effort. Our attention to detail was poor. These words hit like a slap in the face to players who had just given everything they had. I'd say discipline, more so than focus. I think this is a group that focuses, but you can focus, and then you have to be able to go out and be disciplined enough to execute it, right? I'm not sure. As coaches, that's our job to figure it out. Why it is. You've seen it in spurts, you've seen it in moments, you've seen it with certain lineups. So finding, for us, finding those lineups that we've seen it with consistently and maybe keeping those together. But here's the problem. She made zero mention of her own strategic failures. No accountability for benching Hull. No explanation for the McDonald experiment that clearly didn't work. White acted like her coaching decisions had nothing to do with the loss. Meanwhile, Clark took responsibility in her own interview. She acknowledged the offensive struggles honestly. Clark said, I thought we started really well. I thought we were competitive. But the offense, I think, for us, like it starts on defense and we, struggled, scouting report-wise, we struggled personnel, we struggled to do what the coaches asked of us. She took ownership of the team's failures. The contrast was stark. The star player showing maturity while the coach pointed fingers. Clark admitted they struggled to do what the coaches asked of us. She didn't blame anyone else. She looked for solutions instead of excuses. Our team, we have a lot of inconsistency. We raise to the occasion when we're playing for 30,000, and then we need to bring that level of focus and that level of energy every single day. It's really hard to win in this league, and I think, we need to focus every game because all of these games matter when September, October comes. So it's really just going to come to us, and we really need to regroup, turn the page, learn from this, and come with a better mindset on Friday. One analyst noted that White's comments about ball movement seemed to contradict Clark's style of play. The analyst said, clearly her philosophy on basketball does not suit Caitlin Clark. This raised serious questions about whether these two could work together successfully. This revealed a deeper philosophical clash between White's rigid system and Clark's natural style. White wants to control every possession. Clark thrives when she can create and adapt. These approaches don't mix well together. An analyst summed it up perfectly and said, I think the Fever are getting very close to having to make a choice, and that is like, do they want to choose Stephanie White or do they want to choose Caitlin Clark? The question everyone's asking, how can this team succeed when the coach won't own her mistakes? So here we are. The Fever just suffered one of their most embarrassing losses of the season. The blame game is in full swing. This loss exposed everything wrong with the current system. Poor coaching decisions, lack of accountability, a fundamental misunderstanding of how to use generational talent. This wasn't just a bad night. This was a complete breakdown of everything that makes this team special. The question isn't whether the Fever can bounce back. It's whether they can do it with Stephanie White still calling the shots. Look at what this team accomplished just last week. They dominated Asia Wilson and the Aces. They outplayed the Lynx. They won their first Commissioner's Cup. That success came when they played to their strengths. The offense clicked during those wins. Hall provided the perfect complement with her three-point shooting. Boston dominated the paint. Mitchell scored when they needed buckets. Everything worked because everyone played their role. Now compare that to what we saw against the Valkyries. Confused rotations. Players out of position. A coach who won't own her mistakes. Clark forced to play off-ball at small forward. McDonald trying to run point alongside Clark when they could have shared minutes. Hall sitting on the bench when the team needed her most. The contrast is shocking. The same players who looked unstoppable during their championship run appeared lost and confused. The offense that had been so smooth became stagnant. The ball movement disappeared. The chemistry evaporated. Clark's impact was most visible in the third quarter when she took control of the offense. She scored 3 points. She grabbed a rebound. She dished out 4 assists. This showed her ability to facilitate and elevate her teammates when given the opportunity. But those moments were too rare. The talent is there. Clark, Boston, Mitchell, Pohl, and the rest of the gang. These players have proven they can compete at the highest level when put in the right system. They've beaten the best teams in the league. They have everything needed to be special. But talent alone isn't enough. The system has to work. The coach has to make smart decisions. Players need to be in positions where they can succeed. That's not happening right now. We're almost at the halfway point of the season. This team has the pieces to be special, but only if they make the right choices about leadership and accountability. The clock is ticking. The talent is waiting. The question is whether anyone in charge will make the necessary changes. Despite this crushing disappointment, there's still hope for the Fever's future. Clark's talent is undeniable. In her first game back, she showed flashes of brilliance with 5 quick points and several assists. She can impact the game in multiple ways when given the chance. Aaliyah Boston's development continues to be crucial for this team's success. Her presence in the paint gives them a foundation to build around. Kelsey Mitchell's experience and scoring ability provide that vital offensive spark they need. Mitchell can create shots and make tough shots when the system works. The 2025 season offers a chance to build the right system around these incredible players and create something truly special. But the coach needs to build a system around her players instead of forcing her players to play her system.